Title of this is The Tale of Two Systems. I'm going to start off with I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. People wondering why I have my hand cranked up like this. Well, until the late 40s and early 50s, that was the standard way of reciting the pledge in the United States in schoolrooms. Yep, like this, and you say the words. Of course, now you're supposed to put your hands over your heart like that and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, in the 50s, they added a word, simple words, under God. Makes people feel good. You see all this, you see this in football games. They do the pledge, they do the national anthem, everyone stands, everyone puts their hands on the chest. In the Pledge of Allegiance, everybody recites these words. How empty are these words to over 10% of people in Florida, and actually a lot more than that. According to the Sentencing Project, over 10.4% of Florida citizens are not even allowed to vote. They are not allowed to defend themselves in the house, own a gun, or even carry a knife out to protect themselves from dangers outside. They're not able to serve on the jury, run for office, or enjoy many of the rights that that flag supposedly represents. There is two systems in this world, and there's one key difference between all of them. In Revelations 3:14, and unto the messenger of the congregation of Laodicea write, these things says the Amen, the faithful, the true witness, the head of the creation of Yahweh. I know your works, that you are neither cold or hot. I would that you were cold or hot. But so, because you are lukewarm and neither cold or hot, I am about to vomit you out of my mouth. Because you say, I am rich, and I am made rich, and I have need of nothing, and do not know that you are miserable and a wanderer and poor and blind and naked. Well, how are we poor, blind, and naked? We were given some blessings when our founders that founded this country. We were given certain rights, as they say. They call them rights or liberties. I call them protections of liberties. We have the Second Amendment. It states, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. I carry this in my car. This is over 4 inches. There's no danger here. It's sitting here. It's not going to jump up. It's not going to go after any of you here. I even touch it to a child. Enhanced child. Still safe so far. We go into the cities, we go in the slums. Well, because of the fact that it says the people have the right to keep and bear arms, and it shall not be infringed or invaded or encroached upon. We know that's not the case today. You can go to a gun store, even a gun show. You want to buy a gun? Well, that's your right according to the Constitution. But you go in, the first thing they're going to do is they're going to ask for your license. They're going to ask for information. They're going to pick up a phone and they're going to call and see if you have governmental permission to exercise your liberty to protect yourself. Now, in this case, we're talking about a knife. It could be even a gun or whatever weapon. What is the result of doing away with that and only allowing certain people at the hands of government to be allowed to do that? Well, one of the things that we have out here, and we see it in the Cove, we see it in different areas in this city, we see it all over the country in different slums and areas. There's a weapon that's being used out there. It's God spelled backwards. D-O-G. A lot of people, they are not allowed to possess weapons or anything despite what the Constitution says, the supreme law, the so-called supreme law of the land. And I say so-called because it's obviously not anymore, at least anyway. What is the result? Well, unlike a knife or a gun or any other device of self-defense, a dog is dangerous. Why? Because like you and me, it has a brain. It can make decisions. It has feelings. It has senses. It gets hungry. It needs love. It gets cold. It gets hot. And it also has a protective instinct for its master. And how it decides whether somebody walking by is a danger or just somebody walking by, be it a child, an adult, or a raving lunatic, the dog makes the decision and the dog acts on it. We read a lot about these decisions that these dogs make. Sometimes they defend and they stand up and dutifully protect their owner. Sometimes we read about it. In a lot of cases, a dog gets out and maims innocent people just walking up down the road. A dog is more dangerous than a gun in many ways, especially a dog that's large, has muscles, has a lot of teeth, and has been especially bred to be a defensive animal. This right here is only as dangerous as the person holding it. I'm right here, I'm talking. I'm not going to stab anybody here. We read about the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrant shall issue but upon probable cause supported by oath of affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. That's called it's called the Fourth Amendment. It's supposed to protect us. This is one of the freedoms that flag is supposed to represent. Easy as 3 words around that. and yeah, anywhere. It gets rid of the entire Fourth Amendment. It's called, you say 3 words, magic words. I smell marijuana. Or whatever it is. The 15th, we go on to the 5th Amendment. This is part of the Bill of Rights, part of what this flag stands for. No person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless on a presentment or indictment of a grand jury, except in cases arising in the land or naval forces or in a militia when in actual service in time of war or public danger. Nor shall any person be subject for the same offense to be twice put in jeopardy of life and limb, nor shall be compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself, nor be deprived of life, liberty, property, or due process of law, nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. With due process, does it exist? Not really. Due process, you can have your home taken from you. You have your car taken from you. Your bank account, you can have all seized on a whim of a bureaucrat or administrative judge. In some cases, you can be called in front of an administrative judge, and a judge be so cowardly as to not even let you look at that person. And I know of a particular case where that has happened to somebody here in this house. They could not even look at the judge. I thought trials were supposed to be public. We go to the 15th Amendment. Section 1. The right of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of race, color, or previous condition of servitude. I repeat, or previous condition of servitude. Section 2. The Congress shall have the power to enforce this article by appropriate legislation. What does all this have to do with Scripture? I'm going to get to that in just a few minutes. In Florida, like I said before, according to the Census Project, over 10% of the Florida citizens are not even allowed to vote, in spite of this amendment. This amendment was actually put into Congress and ratified after the War of Southern Independence. They call it the Civil War. Whatever term you want to use is fine, but after that period of time, that was put in place so newly freed slaves, newly freed indentured servants of all colors could actually have a stake in the new system, or the renewed system. But what happened is Jim Crow came along. States come up and changed their constitutions to the point where, okay, well, we'll say if you're convicted of felony, you never can vote again, or you never have any of these rights. This was done in order to prevent people from newly freed slaves, newly freed indentured servants from having any power. Now, how can you lose your right to vote forever? There are several ways. You can have bees without a permit. Second offense is a third-degree felony. You can bring an orange tree into the state. That's a third-degree felony. throw a cigarette out of the car window, having a door which opens to the inside of a business, driving without state permission, tapping a cop on the shoulder, tapping a school teacher on the shoulder. It's called assault against the law. It's a felony. You take someone like Bill, someone go and pop him, well, that's a misdemeanor. I'm not saying that you're going to like what happens afterwards, but it's a misdemeanor. You do it to somebody else, someone in a protected occupation, well, it all of a sudden, same offense becomes a felony. Equal protection under the law? Let people decide. More crimes that can get you your rights to own a gun, vote, hold public office, have them taken away from you forever. Working as a nurse without government permission. Working with a barber without government permission. Landscaping without government permission. Building without government permission. All these require a state license. Requires payments to insurance companies. Requires you give up other rights to be able to do that. A federal firearms dealer in a gun show told me that in order to become a federal firearms dealer, you have to give up your right. Your Fourth Amendment rights don't exist. They can come in your house, inspect it, and search your house whenever they want. We are instructed in Isaiah, it says, 61, preach liberty to the captives. The Spirit of Yahweh Elohim has anointed me to proclaim liberty to the captive, recovery of sight to the blind, and complete opening to the bound. We get back to where we were speaking, okay? Now we're going to look at a just system. In Deuteronomy 15:12, if thy brother, a Hebrew man or a Hebrew woman, be sold unto thee, and serve thee 6 years, then in the 7th year thou shalt let him go free from thee. And when thou sendest him out free from thee, thou shalt not let him go away empty. Thou shalt furnish him liberally out of thy flock and out of thy winepress, of that therein Yahweh thy Elohim hath blessed thee, thou shalt give unto him. And thou shalt remember that you was a bondman in the land of Egypt, and Yahweh thy Elohim redeemed thee. Therefore I command thee this thing today. If thou shalt remember thou wast a bondman, okay? Remember your roots. Remember where we came from. Those amendments I had talked about before. The 2nd, the 4th, the 5th, and the 15th, all those amendments, we get back to the flag. It's supposed to represent all these. And if you look at that flag, we can go to Daniel chapter 3, verses 1 through 7. Nebuchadnezzar, the king, made an image of gold, whose height was 60 cubits, and the breadth thereof 6 cubits. He set it up in the plain of Dura, in the province of Babylon. Then Nebuchadnezzar, the king, sent to gather together the princes, the governors, and the captains, the judges, the treasurers, the counselors, the sheriffs, and all the rulers of the province to come to the dedication of the image which Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up. Then the princes, the governors, the captains, the judges, the treasurers, the counselors, the sheriffs, and all the rulers of the province are gathered together into the dedication of the image that Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up. And they stood before the image that Nebuchadnezzar had set up. Then the herald cried aloud, "Oh, say, can you..." Oh, wrong thing, sorry. Then the herald cried about, "To you is commanded, O people, nations, and languages, that at what time ye hear the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, sackbut, psaltery, dulcimer, all kinds of music, ye fall down and you worship the golden image that Nebuchadnezzar the king has set up. And those who fall not down and worship shall in the same hour be cast into the midst of the burning fiery furnace." Well, there were some people, there's a handful of rebels that did not bow. They did not salute. They did not prostrate themselves or did whatever kind of obeisance to this image. There are some, I'm sure a lot of them did stand up and do it. They didn't care really about the image or whatever. They did it because they didn't want to get thrown in the furnace. I think about the last year or so, there's been a fight going on. This fight has happened in the National Football League. We have two idols, the followers of two idols, and some even follow both idols. We're battling it out. You have football. What is football? Saturday, Sunday, Friday, Wednesday, Thursday, many times a day when people should be praying, they should be with their families and everything, talking together, enjoying one another. They're yelling at a TV screen because someone didn't catch a pigskin in time, or because someone was dropped with that pigskin before he reached a certain post. And people get all upset. They pop their veins. Some get really mad. Some yell at their children. I've known even people who beat their kids up because the wrong person caught the wrong pigskin. And in this hoopla, this last couple of years, there's been some people who decided that instead of standing for the flag, they're going to kneel. They don't want to participate because they don't see it representing anything that applies to them. You have Capernaum, you have several others that did kneel. So what has happened? You have a big outcry on Facebook and all. Oh, they disrespecting the flag. Viewership on TV of the national football game. Guess what? It's gone down. Stadiums are more empty now than they ever were before. Is that a bad thing? No, I think that's a very good thing. But again, it's a group of one idol worshippers offending because somebody doesn't worship their idol against another group that wants to play and wants to make money under their idol. So again, we have two groups of idol worshippers fighting it out. What does Scripture say we should do for those who break the laws or those who make a mistake? Well, the tale is two systems we talk about. There's one difference between the Satanic kingdom, the Babylonian systems, even of the Western Israelite governments. The Israelite people, we still have a Babylonian system because it's missing one important element. We will discuss that important element in just a little bit. But let's go we're going to go look at, I will find it here in just a second. I know it's in John. I just got to find out where. John 8, verse 11. Now, there are some people who say that in the original scriptures, this chapter did not exist, that this was added by the Catholic Church. I've heard this in several places. But we're going to read and see if the story is consistent with what the scriptures would teach. John 8 through 11. Well, actually, let's pick it up at chapter 8, verse 3. And the scribes and the Pharisees brought unto him a woman taken in adultery. And when they had set her in the midst, they say unto him, Teacher, this woman was taken in adultery in the very act. Now Moses and the law commanded us that such should be stoned. But what sayest thou? And they said, tempting him, that they might have to accuse him. But Yeshua stooped down with his finger, wrote on the ground as though he heard them not. So they were going to say their thing, and here is Yeshua writing something in the ground. What was he writing? It doesn't say, but we're going to read on. So when they continued asking him, he lifted himself and said unto them, He that is without sin among you, let him cast a stone at her. Again, he stooped down and wrote on the ground. And when they heard it, being convicted by their own conscience, went out one by one, beginning at the eldest, even unto the last. And Yeshua was left alone, and the woman was standing in the midst. When Yeshua had lifted himself up and saw none but the woman, he said unto her, Woman, where are those thine accusers? Hath no man condemned thee? And she said, No man, Master. And Yeshua said unto her, Neither do I condemn thee. Go, and sin no more. Now, what was this Yeshua writing in the ground? There's two schools of thought. One school was that he was writing about the law of adultery. Okay, the Torah says that must be at least two witnesses, the woman and the man must be killed for the crime. Of course, unless the man rapes her or something, then it's a different story. But the woman and man, what was Yeshua writing? Is there any mention of the man being there? No. Is there any mention of the two witnesses being there who saw her? Was Yeshua writing the law of the Torah to convict him and to defend this lady? For where there is law, there's remedy. We have, in this case, are we applying rule of the law or are we applying rule of man? Yeshua was in every right, had every right to forgive this woman. He said, Go and sin no more. Well, he knew she was guilty. It doesn't say of what, just said, Go and transgress no more. Do not break my laws anymore. Was she guilty of adultery? Maybe. Where was the man? The whole thing was done improperly. Where there's law, there's remedy. Now, other school of thought is this guy was writing the people's, the scribes and the Pharisees, writing their transgressions down that he knew about, writing in the dust what they have done wrong and kept in secret. Could he have written those things? Absolutely. We have no clue. We know this was put in the scriptures. It's a dispute as whether it was in the original or not, but whether it was or not, it still points out a basic fundamental of law. We go to Romans. We're going to read in Romans 13. Let every soul be subject unto the high powers, for there is no power but of Yahweh. The powers that be are ordained of Yahweh. Whosoever resisteth the power, resisteth the ordinance of Elohim. And they that resist shall receive to them damnation. For rulers are not a terror to good works, but to the evil. Wilt thou then not be afraid of the power? Do that which is good, and thou shalt have the praise of the same. For he is a minister of Yahweh to thee for good. But if thou do that which is evil, be afraid, for he beareth not the sword in vain. For he is the minister of Yahweh, a revenger to execute wrath upon him that doeth evil. Does that sound like those who force people to do gay marriage? Does that sound like that is promoting good? Or that promote blasphemy? Is that promoting good? Or that promote and publish and protect pornography? Is that doing any good? Or that allowed drugs to be brought into the United States and poison our people? Is that good? A lot of people use these words to try to browbeat people into going along with evil systems. Now, of course, David, he went against the evil king, came up against him. He committed no violence. He got himself out of the country. He went to the Philistines for a while to get away from it. He hid. He did not commit violence against people. We're of the kingdom of Yahweh. We are not here to commit violence. We're not here to push our weight around against other people. We are here to teach a system of government, a system that's fair and equitable. We're here to teach. We're here to preach liberty to the captives. The Spirit Yahweh Elohim has anointed me to proclaim liberty to the captive, recovering of sight to the blind, and complete opening to the bound. We go back, and we're going to read again. If thy brother, a Hebrew man, or a Hebrew woman, be sold unto thee, and serve thee 6 years, in the 7th year, thou shalt let him go free from thee. And when you send him out free from thee, thou shalt not let him go away empty. Thou shalt furnish him liberally out of thy flock and out of thy winepress, of that wherein Yahweh thy Elohim hath blessed thee. thou shalt give unto them. And thou shalt remember that thou was a bondman in the land of Egypt, and Yahweh thy Elohim redeemed thee. Therefore I command thee this thing today. Redemption. That is the key. You go out, you commit an offense in this system. In the Hebrew system, you go out, you commit offense, you have to pay for your crime. If you can't pay for it, you're sold into slavery. Now you go through, you work your way out, you pay off your debt, and in the 7th year you go free. Or even in the 3rd year or 2nd year, if you can pay your whole debt out, you go free. You're free, just like any other person. You can carry one of these. You can carry a sword. Or whatever. Your punishment is done. It's completed. The Jubilee. The land goes back to the original owners. All the captives are freed. Not just the Hebrew, but all of them. And even those who are not Hebrew, if they become circumcised and keep the law and do what they're supposed to, well, guess what? They become a Hebrew servant. They have rights. You knock out somebody's tooth, a slave's tooth, he goes free. You knock out his eye, he goes free. Even the lowliest servant has protections of the law. Not so in this system. Well, you might get a sue, get a little bit of money. If you have enough resources, you can have a chance. You might get a little something, but you're not going to be made whole. When somebody leaves prison in the state of Florida, they don't even get to keep their own clothes. They go out with somebody else's clothes. And if they don't have any money, they go out empty. Not one single dime. Turn loose. Instantly branded as a second-class citizen for life. That Pledge of Allegiance, empty. The rights, the freedoms, and all listed there does not apply to somebody who's been in trouble. No redemption. So what is the difference between Satan's system, the prince and the power of this air, and Yahweh's system? It is simple. In Yahweh's system, a whole thing of redemption, whole system of it. This system, maybe a lottery where a few, maybe less than 100 people a year can get a pardon. That's the only redemption that's offered. Yahweh, he tells you, look up, for your redemption draweth nigh. And that, my friends, is a tale of two systems. One offers redemption, the other, baggage. Hallelujah.